Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by BadgerBlitz.com publisher and editor-in-chief, John McNamara. Great to see you, as always, buddy.
Good to see you too, Matt.
All right. I don't want to say our long national nightmare is over, but at least we have some sort of resolution at the moment with the Xavier Lucas transfer portal saga. So in a strange twist of events, he didn't even hit the portal, yet is still somehow ending up at Miami by unenrolling and re-enrolling. And that seems like an interesting workaround that someone might want to take a look at. And I think there are plenty of high-priced lawyers who are looking at these things right now, John. So wrap it up for us a little bit here, sort of as things stand. Where are we, and what is the sort of any more future action or recourse that we could expect to see?
Well, that's a good question. I think one thing, Xavier Lucas will not be playing for Wisconsin. I guess in the end, I do see Xavier Lucas playing for Miami. Now, what happens in between that is going to be interesting. You saw Wisconsin come out and release really their first public communication since this has all been going down. And, they seem ready to fight this. And then I think maybe the bigger piece of this is that, they have backing from the Big Ten. Now, it seems like something like this was going to happen somewhere, likely in one of these Power 2 conferences. It just happens to be Wisconsin. And I think the Big Ten, likely saw that, a situation like this was going to occur. And hey, let's have Wisconsin just kind of see how this goes. Let's see how this plays out. We back you up. But with the way things have been going, it was just a matter of time before something like this was going to happen. And it just happens to be with Wisconsin, which makes it that much more interesting for the people that, obviously follow the show and the message board and stuff like that. There's a lot of, legal dialogue going on back and forth, very much so from Miami's side, with that lawyer and, what he's trying to accomplish. And then you would assume Wisconsin's side, which if they're not putting his name in the portal and they've chose this route, you would think that they are ready to battle this thing out in whatever way they see as fit. Now, what does Wisconsin have to gain in the end? I'm not necessarily sure, but look, it's about time where someone or some institution or some group of adults are like, this, we just can't continue this way. It's nuts. So even if it's just for the sake of putting something in order for college football, I think it's going to be a good thing in the end, even if Wisconsin doesn't necessarily gain anything, with money or Lucas playing for them or whatever it may be. I do think it's good to have this hashed out for the good of college football moving forward.
I am curious to see if the university, Big Ten, whatever, really goes after Miami more so than Lucas as an individual. I think that is the battle that is going to need to play out for us to get sort of, I don't want to say closure, but more clarity, at least on the situation. Is there big issue with Lucas, or is there issue with Miami, or is it with both of them? Because I think that there are cases to be made on both sides of that. Reading the tea leaves of the statements and whatnot that have been put out by, lawyers, etc. It does seem like UW has retained the services of some pretty serious law firms here when it comes to attacking this. And I am, if it does end up in some sort of suit or court battle between Wisconsin and Miami, the Big Ten and Miami, then I think we could really start to see maybe some significant change happen, not just for UW, but for the conference and potentially the NCAA.
Yeah, and going back to that, to me this is more of a Miami thing than a Xavier Lucas thing. Obviously for him though, if this is the world that these players want to operate in being as close to professional sports as I think you can, and if you're signing agreements, and again, I don't have anything new to report on that. It's just going off of what's been out there, but if you're signing these sort of agreements, then you got to live up to what you sign. And I think that's where college sports is headed. And you can't just do whatever you want to do. And that's not just Xavier Lucas in particular. This is where college football is at right now. So, it's unfortunate that maybe he has to go through all this. And, when maybe it's a bigger picture thing with Miami, because it certainly seems like Wisconsin believes that Miami was tampering. And that was the biggest thing, I think, when everything came out. Well, how is Wisconsin going to be able to prove this? This goes on nonstop. But as I guess you kind of, dig deeper into this story, there's a lot more layers to it. And obviously, when this stuff came out, the whole Miami fan base, even before you knew where he was going, a lot of people, I guess, did know, because as soon as his name, came into the portal, Miami was attached to it. But, it's interesting to see the fan base right away was so up in arms about this when, I don't know. There's just a lot to this. It's unfortunate. It's one of the things that I think is turning college football fans off. The more of this you can get resolved in the quicker amount of time, I think it's better for the game of football. So, this may be a case where people point to in the future of, hey, this is what happened in this specific situation, and this is how we've handled it, and this is how we're better after it. I hope that's where we get. I hope there's positive out of this, because I don't know. Right now, it's just kind of, it turns me off a little bit to the college football.
I'm with you there. I have thought for a long time that, the portal has, some very good benefits, right? Kids who want to go, especially go be better somewhere. If you've really balled out at a group of 5 or an FCS school, and you can go to a Wisconsin, go to a Ohio State or whatever and make an impact, that's awesome. But I also believe that if coming out of high school, you should be required to stay at the school for 2 years. This actually goes back to a Bobby Knight thing from many, many moons ago, when talking about the one and done rule in college basketball. And Bobby Knight said, if you're going to school to, be a student athlete, you have to make legitimate progress towards a degree, and that's 2 years. And so in my estimation, I have my quarrels with Bobby Knight and a lot of things, but I am with him on this one, in that you should, I believe that you should have to be there for 2 seasons before you can transfer. But maybe that's just me.
Well, I believe that too. I don't see that happening, Matt. I think we're more towards of trying to prevent someone from transferring to a school at halftime than we are of keeping guys on a campus for 2 years. But I'm with you. Like, you get, that transition in your life. Older people have been through that went through college. Your freshman year's tough, whether you're playing football, which requires you to be dialed in for 70, 80 hours a week, or just a normal schmo like I was on a college campus. That first year is difficult, especially if you're a kid coming from Florida to Wisconsin, like Xavier Lucas did. So I'm all for that. I don't see that happening. But again, I hope there's just some good that comes out of this process, and I guess we'll have to see if that happens.
Well, the other big news, I guess, on the football team this past couple weeks has been the decommitment of Jarin Mock, the 2026 quarterback who originally pledged while Phil Longo was still the offensive coordinator. That leaves Wisconsin without a quarterback in the 2026 class right now, and seemingly, not a ton of prospects, because, like we've always talked about, quarterbacks go early. Quarterbacks go really early, and now you're heading into the spring without a quarterback committed. I think only one commit total right now. I think that's the offensive lineman right now for Wisconsin out of the state of Indiana.
Yep.
Ben Novak. That's what I'm thinking of. Where does Wisconsin go from here at the quarterback position? Like, who can they legitimately go for? Because let's face it, most of the top dogs are gone.
Right. Like you talked about, Matt, things happen at that quarterback position pretty quickly. And Wisconsin's going into this, you feel like you have a full year, but really a lot of these guys are off the board. You look at, even the targets that Wisconsin offered under Phil Longo, about half of those guys are already committed to other schools. So, now you go back into this with a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterbacks coach, and kind of a new outlook. I'm not surprised that Wisconsin moved on from Locke, but at the same time, in a
Mock,
class
not
where,
Lock. I mean, they also moved on from Lock. Let's face it.
right?
Too.
I said what?
He said Lock, but
I'm sorry.
Jarin Mock, landed Lock. All it doesn't matter. They might rhyme. They can rhyme together at Sam Houston State because it's not happening in Madison.
Jarin Mock. In a 2 quarterback class, I think you could talk me into Mock being part of that class. A guy with some upside, I think, can do some of the things that probably translate to what Jeff Grimes wants to do. But look, they're going to start fresh. They gave him now plenty of time to go on and take some junior day visits if he wants to. Obviously, I think he will, and then some official visits. So he's got plenty of time to do what he wants to do. I'm curious to see, Jeff Grimes is scheduled to talk today if Wisconsin wants to have a 2 quarterback class, if he gets asked about that. If they do, they got some work to do. Now, right now, it's Bo Bentley, the kid that they targeted from Texas. Can they get him up here, probably in March for a junior day? That'll be interesting to see. So they got some work to do if they want to do a 2 quarterback class. But, right now it could just very well just be 1. So he's the guy you should point to because he's the only new offer that has went out so far.
Well, John, then the question is, will the Badgers have any quarterbacks up for junior days? First one is this weekend, as we speak here on the 21st. There'll be another one in March. And then in addition to that, who are some other guys people should keep an eye out on in terms of prospects who are coming up to Madison, at least for this first big junior day here at the end of January?
Yeah, like you said, Matt, 2 big ones. One is going to be this Sunday, and another one March 8th, I believe. Both of those are home basketball games for Wisconsin, so that's something that they like to kind of pair with these junior days. You've seen that in the past, and I think we've talked about this before. But if you look at past recruiting cycles, the guys that they've got up for junior days are really those top tier, high priority guys, and they've done a nice job kind of closing on some of those guys. So getting them up for a junior day. And then, you would expect a lot of this group then, maybe not all, but a good chunk of this group to take official visits then in June. So, right now we're still kind of piecing together that list. We should have something finalized in the next kind of 24 to 48 hours here. Right now, I don't have a quarterback on that list, but, that could certainly change. You look at guys that are coming in that we have confirmed, Zach Washington, this will be like his 4th, 5th, maybe, I don't think it's a 6, but right in that 4 or 5 range of the times that he's been on campus. One of their top receiver targets. Kenny Guyton's done a really nice job there. Now you kind of give that handoff to Jordan Reed to take over his recruitment. Another guy is going to be there, Titan Davis, who's been on campus a handful of times. He's a big, edge guy, probably defensive lineman. EJ Whitlow's done a nice job in his recruitment. Jake Johnson's coming again from Texas. He's a guy that's kind of turning into a big time target for Wisconsin at 2026 class, because obviously in each and every recruiting cycle, defensive line is pretty important. Jackson Samuels Ford, he's coming from Pennsylvania. We have him as a tight end. Wisconsin actually likes him on the edge. So a guy that kind of projects to Matt Mitchell's room. So again, like I said,
for like a lot of guys on the edge. Let's face it. If they find an athlete, they want to put him on the edge,
without a doubt. So he'll get up there. I think this will be his first visit to Wisconsin. Expect it to be 12, 13, 14 guys. Again, we'll get that list. And as soon as we get it, we'll get a story out of it. We'll get it up in the Badgers den. But this will be that first of 2 big recruiting weekends for Wisconsin.
Owen Cabell's an interesting name for me as well, out of my neck of the woods. There's been a lot of scuttlebutt about him as someone as a real emerging prospect here in Middle Tennessee who has the chance to really blow up. He showed some pretty good stuff as a junior and could be someone who really blows up as a senior because he's got that long frame and he's getting better as a receiver. You can see it from game to game. So I know he's someone that the staff really likes, but it wouldn't surprise me to see a lot of staffs in the Southeast really sort to pick up on this spring as, especially the spring and summer as the camp circuit goes on. You mentioned, John, though, do you have something to say about him?
Well, he's a kid that's a return visit for him too. Yeah. And, I think he's got an offer from Georgia. Mm-hmm. So, he's certainly out there. I don't know, how serious that offer is. I think he's coming off a visit to Illinois. So he certainly seems to be open to some of those Midwest schools. So I think Wisconsin's done a nice job there. Another guy that, you would assume Reed is going to go after pretty hard now. I guess kind of big picture receiver, I think you can make a case for as the most important position in this 2026 class, largely because they took just one in 25, I think, one in 24. So they're going to have to, really hit that group hard. You just don't want to continue to go portal for these receivers. And, you'd like to get 3, I'm assuming 26, and they could go up to 4, I think, if they get the right fit of guys there.
Yeah, they absolutely could. Well, John, you mentioned, pairing these these junior days with the basketball team. Let's talk a little basketball because let's face it, they're on a little bit of a roll right now. Wisconsin is. They've now won 5 straight Big Ten games, and they're doing the LA 2-step this week as we speak after taking care of business against USC on Saturday. They've got UCLA tonight, Tuesday night at Pauley Pavilion, which have the Badgers ever played at Pauley Pavilion before, John? Do you know?
Not to my knowledge. I believe this is the first one. They last played UCLA in 2017, but that was in Kansas City. So I don't think they've played there before, but maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, for any of you Angelinos out there, Angelino Badgers that have not experienced a game at Pauley yet in their life, I cannot recommend it enough. It is a special place to watch a basketball game. So I do highly recommend going if you hear this in time and are able to get tickets. But, John, this basketball team was picked to be sort of middling in the Big Ten, and here we are in mid-January. They sit 4th in the Big Ten standings, playing some really good team ball right now. What do you think, accounts for this somewhat surprising success, especially after, you lose an AJ Storr, who was your leading scorer last year, you lose some other key pieces. They seem to have at least something going right for them.
Yeah. Prior to the start of the season, I think a lot of people, myself included, thought this team might have a difficult time getting into March, getting to the NCAA tournament. Now, there's still obviously that real chunk of the Big Ten schedule to go here, but this very much looks like a Big Ten tournament. I'm sorry, a NCAA tournament team. And I give a lot of credit, if not the bulk of the credit, to Greg Gard and the way that he's adapted and the way that he is allowing himself to rely on the people around him to jump into the world of, the new age college basketball. You have that parallel to Paul Chryst, someone who just was kind of the opposite of not being able to do that, and not being able to, but not being willing to. Greg Gard has really given the keys to Kurt Penny and said, you can do what you want offensively. I mean, Wisconsin essentially now has an offensive coordinator in Kurt Penny, and that they are completely different with what they do on that end of the floor. And he's acknowledged that. He's said after some of these games, you're not going to win. We're not going to play those 55 to 52 games anymore. And you've seen them with, 116 points they scored, I think, against Iowa. I mean, I give him credit for just doing things differently, maybe doing things that are out of his comfort zone. And the results have been very good. And you look at just a couple months ago, maybe go back to the summer when they lose AJ Storr, they lose Chucky Hepburn, and the sky seems like it's falling in Madison. But you get a guy like Tanjay who's stepped in and been an excellent piece to add to that group. Now, I think you take Chucky Hepburn every day of the week, but they have John Blackwell who stepped up and played that point guard role when he needs to. Kamari McGee's been huge. He's, a 4th-year guy. Carter Gilmore's been great as a 5th-year guy. So they've been able to do a lot of things very well, and it's different from what Greg Gard was doing when he started. And I give him a ton of credit for, 1, being willing to adapt, and 2, doing it so well in the ever-changing landscape of college basketball. So, really tip of the cap to him and what he's been able to do. And like I said, Wisconsin's now in a position to definitely, most likely, be in the NCAA tournament in a couple weeks here.
Yeah, and it's interesting. If you just look at the Big Ten standings, obviously Michigan State's still undefeated in conference, and the Badgers will have a chance against Michigan State on March 2nd. And if both teams keep playing like they are, that could be I mean, I don't want to say a potential top 10 battle, but I mean, if both teams keep winning, obviously, they're going to keep climbing in the rankings. The Badgers don't get Michigan. They won't see Michigan again, I should say, after the pretty tough loss to them earlier in the year. But they will have a chance against the other team ahead of them in the standing, and that is Purdue in mid-February. That should also be a good one. John, you talk about this team being, not, I don't want to say a lock for March Madness, but pretty close at this point if they continue to play the way they are. My question is, can they make a run at the Big Ten title in either the regular season or the tournament? Obviously, they are 2 games back in the regular season standings. But do you think this is a team that could be poised to make a deep run in the Big Ten tournament?
I think they're equipped to do that. They have good guard play. They're old. They do a lot of things well. It worries you with this type of offense. That one cold shooting night in a tournament setting that maybe sets them back. But they have shot poorly in one game. So I think this team could absolutely make a little run, and that's what the guard detractors will point to is we got to see it in March. We got to see it, and there I wouldn't argue against that too much. I don't know. When is the last time they've made it out of the first weekend? I should probably have that in front of me, but I don't. But that's what it's going to take that next step. This feels like a team that can get to that second weekend in the NCAA tournament. This feels like a team that is formed and is working at a level right now that can make a little bit of run in the Big Ten as well. So I'm not going to come out and say this team's got Final Four written all over, because I don't feel that way. But I think that if the matchups are right, this is absolutely a team that could be playing in Sweet 16 here in a couple weeks.
Well, the last time they made the second weekend of the tournament was 2017. That was their 4th consecutive Sweet 16 appearance. But it's been a minute, John. It's been a minute. I mean, you're looking at 8 years, which is kind of crazy to say, because this was a program under Bo Ryan for the longest time that was a Sweet 16 staple. You could bet more often than not that, I mean, if you look starting, I'm just looking at it here. Years that they made the Sweet 16, 03, 05, 08, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, and then nothing since then. And I think that's, like you mentioned, it's been kind of the knock on Gard is that, there's been some really good regular season success. We've seen them finish top 4 in the Big Ten. Who knows how many times? A lot of times, and then kind of fall flat in March. And that is, that's the key here, right? You have to get over the hump. I don't know if there's necessarily a mandate that there's expectation that this team is the one that gets them over the hump, gets them back to the Sweet 16, to the Elite 8, because they don't necessarily have that high end talent. You don't have your Sam Deckers, Bronson Koenigs, guys who came out of high school as high 4 and 5 stars. But at the same time, you've got a team that is playing together as a team. And that's a little bit different, I think, than what we've seen in the past couple of years, because if you look at the AJ Store team, what I'll call the Johnny Davis year, those were such dominated by one, combo guard, one guy who had the ball in his hands all the time. And it does seem like this team shares the ball a lot more, which I think is probably a good omen for success in March, because you're not so reliant on one guy. And if that guy is off, if that guy is cold, if that guy is able to get locked down by a player on the other team, you have guys who have proven during the season that they can make the shots, that they can make the big play. And it's not just, we're down 3, just give AJ the ball and clear out. Right. You have, like you mentioned, a system, an offensive coordinator with Kirk Penny that is clearly doing something right.
Yeah. John Tonje doesn't score against USC on the road and they win.
That's insane.
Yeah. if you are an optimist, that's something you absolutely point to. And this is, I think Greg Gard says, get old, stay old. This is an old team. Crowell 5th year, Carter Gilmore 5th year, Kamari McGee 4th year, Tanjay 6th year, Max Klesmet 5th year. Those are all key guys for you, and they've all been through the Big Ten battles, and they've all have that postseason experience. So it's not a make or break. They got to do it this year, but this is a really good opportunity, a really good group to do it with, assuming they stay healthy, assuming they continue to kind of play at the rate that they've been playing at so far. So yeah, for a lot of those reasons, I think this team could be the team that breaks that slump of not getting there since 2017.
Well, no matter what happens to them, we're going to be here to talk about it on BadgerBlitz TV. So we appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure to do all the good stuff, like, subscribe, rate, review, unsubscribe, resubscribe, re-rate, re-review. And make sure you are subscribing to BadgerBlitz.com for the best information and message boards anywhere in the known Badgerverse. Until next time, he's John McNamara. I'm Perkins, and we'll see you in the den.